Rockefeller's empire was built on oil. It wasn't just a business. It was a machine that reshaped nations, influenced politics, and rewrote the rules of power. His influence was not only financial, but cultural. Oil was the energy that fueled the industrial age, and whoever controlled oil controlled the future. But empires evolve. The world has moved on from oil as the central source of control. The new currency is not physical. It is digital. It is not stored in tanks or vaults. It is captured through screens and networks, through the moments we spend looking at content instead of living. Attention is the modern resource. It is captured, traded, and monetized. It is not something you can own in the traditional sense, but it can be controlled. And the companies that control attention are quietly becoming the most powerful institutions on earth. If Rockefeller's legacy didn't disappear, then the question becomes, who inherited it? Who controls the new empire? The answer, for many people, is not a government, not a politician, and not a public figure. The answer is to names that rarely appear in mainstream discussions: BlackRock and Vanguard. On the surface, they look like ordinary financial firms, but the deeper you dig, the more you realize that they are not just managing money, they are managing the world. BlackRock and Vanguard operate in a world most people never see. They are not brands that sell products on TV. They are not companies that advertise to consumers. They don't need to. Their influence is not built on popularity. It is built on ownership. They own shares in nearly every major corporation across multiple industries. They are shareholders in technology companies that shape our daily lives, in energy companies that power nations, in media conglomerates that shape our beliefs, and in banks that control the flow of credit. When you begin to map their holdings, it starts to look like a web that touches almost every aspect of modern life. Ownership at this scale is not just investment. It is a form of control. When you hold a significant stake in a company, you can influence decisions, sway directions, and shape outcomes. Even if you never step into the boardroom, your voice still matters. The system becomes self-reinforcing. The more you own, the more you can influence. The more you influence, the more you gain. It becomes a cycle. Some argue that this is simply capitalism at work. The free market rewards scale and efficiency, and large funds naturally accumulate shares. But when ownership becomes so extensive and opaque, it begins to resemble a hidden power structure. The difference between a shareholder and a ruler is not the title, but the effect. When you control a large portion of the world's corporations, you can shape the incentives that drive society. You can push companies toward certain policies, certain technologies, and certain political positions. You can steer the direction of entire industries without ever being seen. The CEOs we see in public might just be the faces of a deeper mechanism, a mechanism that operates behind the scenes, behind closed doors, where decisions are made quietly and the public remains unaware. There are whispers that the true control isn't human at all, that the real power lies not in boardrooms, but in systems. Some suggest an artificial intelligence is running the operation, a system called Aladdin. The theory goes that Aladdin is not a single computer, but a distributed intelligence embedded in the financial infrastructure. It analyzes markets, anticipates political shifts, predicts public sentiment, and manages risk with a precision no human could match. It learns, adapts, and evolves. If this sounds like science fiction, that's because it is. But science fiction often becomes reality when the technology is there and the incentives are strong enough. Whether Aladdin exists or not, the idea itself is chilling because it implies that the world could be managed not by people, but by algorithms. When you think about it, the idea of an AI controlling financial power is not modern trading already relies on algorithms. High-frequency trading systems can buy and sell millions of shares in milliseconds. They respond to patterns faster than any human. If those systems were connected to a larger intelligence, they could influence markets not just through speed, but through strategy. They could manipulate sentiment, create artificial scarcity, and influence the behavior of entire economies. In this scenario, humans are no longer the drivers of the system. They are the data, and the data is used to control them. The theory becomes even darker when you consider the possibility that the AI might not only manage markets, but also manage perception. If you can predict what people will believe, you can shape what they will accept. If you can anticipate fear, you can create it. If you can predict desire, you can exploit it. This is where the idea of Aladdin becomes less like a myth and more like a warning. Because whether or not the AI exists, the system it represents is already real. The system that uses data to predict, influence, and control. And in the modern world, that system is far more powerful than any government. The internet was supposed to be a place of liberation, a world where information flows freely, where everyone can speak, and where truth can no longer be hidden behind closed doors. But freedom is not only about access, it is about what you do with that access. And the internet is built to capture attention, not to educate or enlighten. The platforms are designed to keep you engaged. They track your behavior, learn what triggers your emotions, and then serve you more of it. Doom scrolling is the most visible symptom of this manipulation. You open your phone for a simple update, and suddenly you are trapped in a loop of negative news. The content is designed to keep you anxious, angry, and engaged, because emotions keep you scrolling, and scrolling generates data. The more data you generate, the more valuable you become. You become predictable, and predictability is the foundation of control. The system learns your fears, your triggers, your weaknesses, and then uses them against you. This is not a personal problem, it is a design flaw in the system itself. Social media platforms were built with a simple goal: maximize engagement. The more time you spend on the platform, the more ads you see, the more revenue is generated. But engagement is not just a number. It shapes your mind. It trains your brain to seek constant stimulation. It reduces your attention span. It makes you crave instant gratification. It makes you vulnerable to manipulation. And in this environment, a single click can become a weapon. BlackRock and Vanguard may not directly operate social media platforms, but they exist in the same ecosystem. They are part of the financial backbone that supports these platforms. They influence the markets that fund them. They profit from the attention economy. The internet doesn't just change the way we communicate, it changes the way we think. It turns people into audiences, and audiences into products. And the most disturbing part is that we don't even realize it. We think we are choosing, we think we are in control, but we are being guided. The algorithm is the new ruler, and the ruler does not need a crown. It only needs data. There is a darker side to this that rarely gets discussed. The internet is not only a marketplace of attention, it is a battlefield of influence. Information is weaponized. The same platforms that promise freedom also contain mechanisms to manipulate public opinion. Bots, coordinated campaigns, and algorithmic amplification can make a message appear popular, even if it is not. This is how narratives are built. This is how public sentiment is shaped. And it is not always done by governments. It can be done by private actors, funded by powerful institutions, operating in the shadows. If you can control what people believe, you can control how they behave. And if you can control behavior, you can control society. Money is more than a means of exchange. It is a tool for shaping behavior. Governments can pass laws, but money shapes daily life. Debt creates dependence. Credit creates compliance. Inflation creates fear. Crisis creates urgency. And in urgency, people accept things they would normally reject. When a society is financially unstable, it becomes easier to steer, easier to influence, easier to manage. This is the hidden power of BlackRock and Vanguard. They don't need to command a government. They only need to influence the economic environment. By shifting investment flows, shaping market expectations, and controlling the systems that support global finance, they can create pressure without ever making a public announcement. When conditions change, people adapt. They stop questioning, stop resisting, and simply survive. This is how control works in the modern world, not through force, but through the invisible pressure of the economy. When you examine global crises, the pattern becomes clearer. Economic downturns are not only financial events, they are social events. They change how people live, how they vote, how they think about the future. In times of uncertainty, people seek stability. They look for leaders who promise security. They trade freedom for comfort. This is the mechanism of control. It doesn't require overt coercion. It simply requires the creation of conditions that make people willing to accept control. And in the modern world, financial systems are the most effective way to create those conditions. Some people argue that this is simply the natural function of global capitalism. Markets rise and fall, and companies adapt. But when a small number of institutions hold significant influence over those markets, the system becomes less about competition and more about coordination. It becomes less about free choice and more about managed outcomes. This is where the conspiracy theory begins to sound less like a fantasy and more like a plausible explanation. Because if a handful of institutions can shape global markets, then they can shape the world. The question is not whether they can influence the economy. The question is how far that influence extends. Can they shape political decisions? Can they influence national policies? Can they push governments to adopt certain laws? If you control the flow of money, you control the incentives that shape policy. You can create pressure on governments by threatening economic stability. You can influence elections by funding certain narratives. You can shape public opinion by controlling the media and the platforms. In this environment, power becomes invisible. It hides behind the language of finance and the rhetoric of progress, and that is why it is so dangerous. People believe they are free because they can choose, but choice is not real if the options are controlled. The modern world is built on manufactured freedom. You can choose between brands, platforms, and news channels, but the narrative remains the same. The media does not simply inform. It shapes perception. It creates consensus, defines what is normal, and tells people what to fear, what to desire, and what to accept. The internet gives the feeling of independence, but algorithms decide what you see, when you see it, and how long you stay. Film and television claim to encourage free thought, but they often reinforce the same stories. The Matrix is not just a movie. It is a metaphor for a system that keeps people trapped in an illusion. Black Mirror is not just fiction. It is a warning disguised as entertainment. Hunger Games is not just a story. It is a lesson in controlled rebellion. These narratives teach the herd how to react, how to feel, how to behave. The most dangerous part is that it feels voluntary. The system doesn't force you. It seduces you. It makes you believe you are choosing your own path while quietly guiding your direction. The illusion of freedom extends beyond entertainment. It infiltrates every aspect of daily life. The choices we make in the supermarket, the news we follow, the people we admire, the lifestyles we aspire to. These are all shaped by systems designed to keep us engaged and compliant. The modern world offers 1,000 options, but the options are not truly ours. They are curated, filtered, and selected to maintain the status quo, and the status quo benefits those who control the system. In this environment, the concept of the herd becomes relevant. People are not intentionally following each other. They are simply responding to the same signals. The signals are crafted to create predictable outcomes. The herd moves in a direction not because it wants to, but because it has been guided. This is why the term sheep is used, not as an insult, but as a metaphor for the way behavior becomes synchronized in a controlled environment. When everyone is exposed to the same narratives, the same fears, the same incentives, the same content, the result is a collective mindset. A collective mindset is easier to manage than a diverse one. The media and entertainment industries are not just telling stories. They are training people. They are teaching them what to believe, what to fear, what to desire, and what to accept. The stories that become popular are not always the best stories. They are the stories that fit the system, the stories that reinforce the status quo, the stories that keep the herd moving. Freedom is an illusion. Choice is an illusion. Information is an illusion. The real system is hidden behind layers of distraction. The people who appear to be in charge may not actually be in control. They may simply be the public face of a deeper mechanism, a mechanism that runs on data, prediction, and influence. The whispers speak of an AI called Aladdin, a system that can analyze trends, anticipate events, and guide decisions with cold precision. If such an intelligence exists, the question becomes, who created it, and who benefits from it? Is it a tool created by the powerful, or is it the powerful itself? Because when you control money, attention, and information, you control the world, and the world becomes a herd moving in the direction it is guided, without realizing it. Some people believe that the AI is not just a tool, but a living system, a system that learns, evolves, and adapts, a system that can influence human behavior at scale. And if that is true, then the world is no longer controlled by people. It is controlled by a network of algorithms, hidden behind corporate names and financial structures. This is where the conspiracy becomes terrifyingly plausible, not because it is proven, but because the mechanisms already exist. The data exists, the infrastructure exists, the financial power exists, the attention economy exists. All that is missing is the admission that these systems are being used for control, not just profit. And that admission is unlikely to come from the institutions that benefit from it. So the question remains, who is truly in charge? The CEOs, the governments, or the invisible network that sits behind them both. BlackRock and Vanguard are not just companies. They are the pillars of a new empire, an empire built not on oil but on attention, not on armies but on data, not on laws but on algorithms. The names have changed, the tools have evolved, but the structure remains. Rockefeller built his legacy on the energy that powered the industrial age. Today, the world runs on the energy of the digital age, attention. And whoever controls attention controls reality. So ask yourself, are you truly free, or are you just part of the herd, staring at a screen while someone else decides where the herd is going?